All right, welcome back to another video. In this video, what we're going to do, rather than diving into anything new, I thought we'd take a moment and just build something together. So I think what I want to do is build a horizontal nav bar, like a main menu bar across the top of the screen. And then we'll also build a vertical nav, like as a sidebar going down the side of the screen. And I haven't prepared any code ahead of time. I think we're just going to do it on the fly and see what we come up with. And if I have to look anything up, then we're going to look it up together. And just to kind of show you guys that that's not a big deal. Excuse my camera shaking. My table is really wobbly and my monitor moves. And so I got my webcam up on my monitor. So if I move the table too much, it gets all wavy. So sorry about that. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my screen here. And I have my index file open, just kind of starting off where we left off in the last video. What I think I want to do though is have a fresh slate here to do this with. So let's go ahead now and create, I'm just going to highlight this and create a new style CSS file. And let's just call this menu.css. And we'll close down the other one. We don't really need that. And then what we're going to do is let's create another file here. Let's just call this menu.html. Okay, so I'm just going to have these two files open. I don't need any other files. And then let's go ahead and navigate then to our menu.html. And we have a blank page here. So let's go ahead and get our HTML marked up the way that we want it. So I'm going to go ahead and get the boilerplate going here for the HTML document. And so I got an HTML5 document here. Let's go ahead and link in our style sheet here. So right here above this meta tag, I'll just do a link. And this lives in /styles/menu.css. And then let's go ahead and give this a title of menu example. Okay. Then inside the body, let's go ahead and create a couple things. Let's create our header. Because we'll go ahead and just kind of, I was thinking about doing a page layout as a separate video, but I think what we'll do is just go ahead and make this whole thing on this video and just kind of do just a little project here to end our time together in this chapter. So let's go ahead and we'll do a header here. And we'll just do something in the header like maybe your name. For me, I'm going to go ahead and use an H1. And then underneath the header, go ahead and do a paragraph tag and put some sort of little tagline here. CSS is fun. We'll do something like that. It doesn't matter what it is. Underneath the header, I'm going to go ahead and add our first nav bar. So let's go ahead and do a nav here. And in the nav bar, I think what I want to do is we'll do, you know what, we're just going to keep this really basic and just do links. And the first link I'm just going to put in here, we'll do home. We'll do well, you know what? Maybe we can link in some of these. So for home, I guess we'll just do index. Okay. And then we'll do /flex. And this doesn't really make sense, but you know what? Might as well do this. About me.html. We'll go to about me. And then we'll do another one. And this one, let's do spacing.html. Okay. And let's just, for good measure, let's do a link that's going to be fake here. And we'll do a login .html, and we'll just say log in. Okay, so that's this nav bar. Then what I think I want to do, let's create a main content here, and let's do an aside, and let's also do a section. And in this section, for now, I'll just do an H2 and put main content goes here. And underneath our main section here, let's go ahead and do a footer. And let's just write some crazy stuff here. Copyright 2021 Curtis Parham. Okay. Now in this aside, this is going to be our side navigation bar. So here, let's just do an H3, and let's put side nav or something. And inside the side nav, let's do another way of doing a menu and do an unordered list. And let's do an li times 3. And inside of here, let's do let me just get rid of those. If you have Emmet installed, you can do li times 3, and then I'm going to do the greater than sign and say inside of there I want one a tag. And there we go. Now we got some a tags. I'm just going to use the hashtag here, or the number sign, and then we'll just do some side nav stuff. And I'm just going to keep it real basic. We'll just do item 1, just because I don't want to think about what these are. You can figure this out on your own if you want to use some different terminology. Item 3. So we have this main page layout now, and let's refresh the page. Okay, now we have we can see we have a side nav with some unordered list here with some links in it. We have some main content. We have our header. We have this these links that are all lined up here in this nav. So let's go ahead now. Let's just start styling this up. For the rest of the page, I think we'll be pretty much in this menu.css here. And the first thing that I want to do, just to get rid of any spacing around the outside here, is let's just do, let's target the body. And in the body, let's go ahead and do padding 0 pixels. Let's do margin 0 pixels. And I like to do border box border oh wait, box, why can't I think of this stupid property right now? See, I have to look. I'm going to reference our other CSS style. I'm blanking right now. Box sizing, geez, man. So what this does is, I'm going to copy this from there. What this box sizing does is it basically, remember when we talked about how if you were going to set a height and a width, it would count. It would start with your height, but then any padding or margin would get added to it. What this box sizing border box does is it actually says, with my padding and margin and borders, I want to be my set height. So if I set a height on something, then I can reliably know that that's 100 pixels. Okay, so it just gives me a little more ability to calculate how tall something's going to be without doing a bunch of math and things like that. So especially if you start using like dynamic stuff like M's and Rems and stuff like that for borders, it gets a little hard to calculate what those might be. All right, so the next thing that I want to do is let's just go ahead and style up the header, and let's give the header a background color, and let's just do black. Now we'll use our hex for black. So remember, hex decimal for black is 000,000, or we can just do 000 for shorthand for that. And we'll refresh here. All right, great. Now we can't see our we cannot see our font. So let's go ahead now and set the color of that. Let's set the color to well, in the header, let's do white. So that was FFF, or 6 Fs, but FFF for short. All right, so the reason there's this gap up here actually is because there's actually margin top on this H1. So if we look at our HTML here, this H1 inside this header, and if I right click on that and inspect it, you can see that this is being pushed down because there's actually margin. See that orange space on the top and bottom there? There's margin on the top of that. So what I think I want to do there is, let's go ahead and close this down again. And then we're going to go ahead and go down here and target our header. And then our H1 inside of our header, let's do margin top 0 pixels. We're just going to kind of go through this page one step at a time and see what happens here. So now I do want there to be some space so that my text isn't right up against there. So let's give this header some, remember that the spacing on the inside of a div is padding. So let's go ahead and give this some padding. And I'm going to do 18 pixels of padding there. And now that adds 18 pixels of padding around the top, sides, and bottom. Now the other thing that we can do is I don't like how much paddings or how much margins on the bottom of this H1, just in this case. So we can actually do a margin bottom, and let's just put that something way smaller, like 8 pixels. And then let's see what sort of margin we got going on with this paragraph. So the paragraph also has margin of 18. So we could go ahead and do header, paragraph, and here what I want to do is we're going to say margin top, and we're going to do 0 pixels. There we go. So that tucks that right up in there. The other thing that we can do is just because later I want this main content to grow the entire width of the page. Well, you know what? Yeah, I don't want to do anything too nuts right now with styling, but yeah, let's work on now. Let me try one thing here. I don't really like, let's go ahead and set a height of this, of the header. So let's set a height of 100 pixels. Okay, that's kind of big. Let's lower that down to 75. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with the header. Not doing anything super crazy there. Now let's work on the, let's try to work on the main content. So the main content, if we wrapped here, we have this main and there's an aside in there and then our section. So what I want to do is I want to have basically the main section right on the side of this side nav. So let's go ahead now and set up some rules for the main section, and remember the property we have, display flex. Okay, and then we'll do flex wrap, and we're going to set that to wrap so it can wrap on smaller screens. Okay, so now we have our side nav here and our main content here. It doesn't look great right now. We'll fix that and make it a lot better. So we have that flexed, which I like. So now that we can kind of see what the page layout's going to be, let's go ahead and work on this top navigation bar here. So what I want to do in the top navigation bar, let's just say nav. And when we target the nav, I want to do a background color Let's just do 333 to do kind of a dark gray, but maybe what we do is, well, you know what? Let's leave that. And then let's set a height of 35 pixels. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and make this a flex box. So we're going to set the display to flex. And then since these are already in line, you're not going to tell much of a difference. We're going to set this to flex, but let's go ahead and set these items here to have some gap. So let's do gap, and I want to do 12 pixels of gap in between these. Okay, and just so we can see it better for now, let's give these a color, and I want to give these a color of, let's try DDD. Let's see what that looks like. Well, actually, we can't quite do the color like that because these are links, so we're going to have to dive a little deeper to target those links. So let's try give this a well, let's go ahead and style those so we can see them better. So we're going to do nav a, and then so we're targeting inside of our nav any links in there. We want to say that the color is DDD. So let's refresh now. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then so now that we can see these, let's do a few more of the flex properties inside the nav. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and center those in the nav. So what we can do is we can do align items center. Okay. And then what we can do is let's do right here in this, let's do text decoration none, just so this should take away the underlines there. Okay, and that does. All right, so it's looking pretty good so far. Let's keep going now, and let's see, let's right click on this and let's just kind of hover over these. Okay, so let's say that I want to have these be a box, like a full height box that goes all the way across there. And so what we can do is let's give these a height. Let's just try this because I don't know if this is how we're going to handle it, but okay, we'll give it a height. Okay, so now, yeah, sure, that works. Now when I hover over these, they're full height here. And then let's set the, on these here, let's set the line height to 35 pixels. There we go. Now these are more centered. The other thing I want to do is I want to add a little bit of padding on the left and right. I don't really care about adding padding on the top and bottom of this nav, but let's go ahead and do that. Let's add padding, and top and bottom, let's go ahead and just do 0. And then on the left and right, let's do 12 pixels. All right, so that'll give us a little breathing room over here. Okay, the next thing that I want to do is actually, let's highlight over these so we can see what's going on. So the width of these are exactly the width of the text that's inside there. And I want to give a little bit more breathing room inside of those, and so that when we hover over, we can do a background color. So what I think I'd like to do is let's do on the actual A anchor tag here, the link, let's do a padding And let's do 0 pixels for top and bottom. And let's try 8 pixels left and right. Okay, so now we have some padding in there. Okay, cool. What you'll notice is when I hover over those padding, the padding, there's actually, it'll allow me to click the link even in the padding. But there's a little bit of space. You can see my cursor kind of change back in there. And that's because of our gap that we put in the nav. So let me comment out that 12 pixels of gap. Now that we have padding, these will be spaced out because of the padding, but they're going to be tucked right next to each other, which I think looks better. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this gap off there for now. The next thing that we'll do is, I think I want to have this login off to the right instead of in line here. So in order to do that, there's a couple different ways that we can do that, but I'm just going to go ahead and add just a div right here. And I'm going to give this a class equal to, let's just do space or something like that, right? So there's many ways we could do this, but I'm just going to put an empty div in there, which may not be the best way of doing it, but that's the way I can think of it right now. And so what we'll do here is we're going to target that. We're going to say div our nav, and then inside there I want to take a div with a class of spacer. That's what we're going to target. And I'm just going to give this a flex grow 1. And what that's going to do is it's going to put a div in between these two, and it's going to grow to fill the entire empty space, which will cause this login to be over here to the right. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So now that's kind of right aligned over there with the login, and then these are here. So let's go ahead now and give these some hover effects. So let's go ahead right here into this nav. So we'll target nav A, and then we're going to do our pseudo class here, and we're going to say A and then hover. All right. And when we hover over this, let's try to change the color to white instead of the DDD. So right now, if I refresh that, when we hover over these are going to turn white. See, it brightens up a little bit. But let's also change the background color on these to a little bit darker. I don't know how that'll look, but let's do background color. And let's set this to, let's try a, I don't know, maybe a 222. That may not be enough to notice, but oh yeah, there we go. So that's subtle, but it is, it does show up here. And then what we can do, we can also give the nav A with the class of active this style as well, so that when we're on the home page, we could actually program this to tell it whatever page it's on. So if we go back to menu here, and let's just give this, which one do we want to say? Well, let's add a new menu item, just so, and let's make it the second one here. And we'll do /menu.html, which is a page we're on, but let's give this a class of active. And then we'll say menu, whoops, this needs to be in the tag there. So now we have another element here, and because we're on this page, that one's kind of highlighted permanently there. So that's the way that we can make an active class on our menu items. All right, so that, I think I don't really want to spend too much more time on this. The other thing we want to make sure we cover though is that if these are visited links, let's just remember our love-hate. So this one right here is actually the same as link. Okay, so we have in between here, we need to go ahead and say nav a visited, and what we want to do here is say color. We're going to make it the same as DDD. And that's not going to change anything, but if I go over here and we just kind of click on one of these, let me try this one here, and we click on this in the inspector. Let me move my face out of the way. So if we click on this right here, we can actually test the different element states here. So we can try the active and the focus and hover. So if I click that on, you can see that now this has the hover state and visited. Okay, so there we go. This menu is pretty much styled up. It's a horizontal full width navigation bar. Let's go ahead now and let's style up this side nav while we're here. And let's look at the HTML in that. So in the HTML we had the aside, and then we had a nav, an H3, and then the UL. So let's do, let's target the aside first. And what I want to do with the aside is I want to give this a width, and let's give this a width of 250 pixels. And then I want to give this a background color of, let's do the DDD. Let's see what that looks like. There we go. So now we have this here. And let's see, maybe perhaps 250 is a little much on there. Let's try 175 and see what that looks like. Okay, that looks pretty good. The other thing that I want to do is I want to target the header right here. And we'll say the aside, and I think we used an H3 in there. We did. So we're going to say the H3, I want that to have a margin top of 0 pixels, because right now this space is caused by that margin, okay? And then to take care of adding some breathing room there, I actually want to add padding on, not the H3 rather, but on the aside itself. So let's add some padding. And again, I'm going to do 18 pixels here. Okay. Then what I want to be able to do is let's start let's start styling this navigation up, I guess. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we have our side nav, and so we're going to target the aside, and inside there we use the UL. Now we can, what if we wanted to put an unordered list in here for some reason? One thing we could do is go ahead and give this UL a class of side nav or something, just so we're sure that we're targeting that more specifically. So side nav, and then the first couple things that we're going to want to do is let's go ahead and get rid of this weird spacing over here. So let's do, let's go ahead and see what's causing it. So if you look here, this UL has some margin on the top and bottom, so we can get rid of that. And then it also has padding left. So let's go ahead and reset that. Let's do margin. And I think what I want to do, let's just do 0 pixels for now. And let's do padding 0 pixels. Okay, so now that kind of shoves this off to the left here. You'll notice that these items line up with our 18 pixels of padding, but these list item bullets don't really respect that much. And I think that's why by default, the unordered list has that padding on the left to try to offset for that. But it doesn't much matter because we're going to get rid of those anyway. So let's go ahead and work on that. So let's do list style type, and let's do none. Okay, so inside of our unordered list here, which is what we've targeted basically, we've gotten rid of those bullet points by doing list style type none. Okay, now the next thing that I want to do is I kind of want these list items to go all the way across, because when I highlight these, I'd like the bar to just highlight all the way across here. So let's go ahead now and let's do let's target our side ul dot side nav, and then we're going to target the links inside of them, and let's do text decoration none to get rid of the underline. Let's go ahead and do the color of these. Let's do 333. Let's see what that looks like really quick. Okay, and then what I'd like to do is let's also style this hover class here, and we need to do the visited as well. So all we're going to do with that is probably just target the color and make that the same color as before. But on the hover, let's go ahead and make the color of these. I want to make the color darker, so let's do black. And let's do the background color darker than what we had set this background color. So back up here we set the aside to DDD. So let's try darker, and let's go with we use the color as 333. Let's just go slightly. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, that's not too bad. We might do a little something with that. Okay, so now back in the link item, remember how I kind of wanted this to go all the way across. So right now, these are set up, well, let's do a display on these link items, and let's try block. Okay, cool. So now you can see that because they're block level elements, they take up the available space here, which is what I want, because I want to be able to click over here, not just on the text. And I want actually this to go all the way out. So one trick that we can do is, since we have 18 pixels of padding on this nav, we could do a margin, and I'm going to do 0 for the top and bottom, but on the left and right I'm going to do a negative. So you can actually do a negative margin there. And now you can see that these the hover state goes all the way up to the edges. So I could click anywhere on this side nav and get those. So the other thing I want to do is give it, now this is tucked way too close to the side. So let's go ahead and give the A some padding now, and this will add our gap on the tops and bottoms and on the left and right. So what I want to do on the top and bottom, let's go ahead and do something like, let's try 12 pixels on the top and bottom. That's going to be too much. Let's just try 10. And on the left and right, let's put that back at 18 pixels. There we go. I'm kind of happy with that. It may be a little bit too much on the top and bottom, so let's go ahead and lower this down to like 8. Okay, I think that looks a little nicer. All right, so then we have our main content. I'm not going to do too much with the main content here, but let's look at our HTML and see what that looks like. So we just have this section. So let's go ahead and target our section now. And let's just give this some padding of 18 pixels. Okay. And then let's style up our footer. And the footer, let's see. Let's do a height of 50 pixels. Let's do a color of white. Let's do a background color of black. So I don't want to get too far, so let's see what that looks like. Okay, so now this has a background color of black. We gave the text a color of white. Let's go ahead and lower the font size down a little bit on that. So let's do font size, and let's give this a font size of 12 pixels. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, it's a little small. Maybe let's try 13. All right. Then what I think I want to do is let's go ahead and make the footer a display flex as well. And let's go ahead and align, or you know what? Align items. Let's try content center. No, it is items. Sorry about that. All right. And then let's give it some padding. But I'm going to give this padding a 12 pixels, I think. Ooh, that's a lot. One thing that we can do is, instead of putting our box sizing here, let's just go ahead and target star here. Nope. Bad idea. So let's move that property. Let's just target star, which is everything, and let's say box sizing border box, and then get rid of that out of the body. Okay. Okay, so now we have a few other issues. We weren't actually targeting our header with that box sizing, so when we added the height of only 75 pixels earlier, we didn't see the issue with with not having enough room. So what I think we'll do to remedy that is let's just set this back to 100 pixels and just see what that looks like. Okay, so I think that works. All this still looks correct. Okay, the last thing I'd like to do is I want to make this content go all the way down so that our footer is always at the bottom here. So inside of our main, let's do a min height, and we're going to do our calc function, and we're going to say 100 view heights, so 100% of the view, and then we're going to subtract our header, our footer, and our navigation. So our header was 100 pixels, our nav is 35, and our footer is 50. So we have 150 and 35. So that's 185 pixels total. And the way I'm getting that is I'm taking the height of this header, the height of this, and the height of this, and I'm subtracting that from the 100% of our view. And what that should do is make this shove that down there. So let's figure out if that worked. And it does. And if this is dynamic, so like if I move this all seems to work just fine. And we can see that our side nav goes all the way down to the bottom. That's good. So there we go. Awesome. Awesome. So yeah, we have a couple different, we have a horizontal nav here that we've worked up. We have a vertical nav that can be used. One thing, let me look at the hover color on that side nav here. Yeah, it is black. It's just hard to see, I think. We can inspect that and find out for sure by going to our hover class here. And we'll go ahead and make that a hover, turn that hover state on. And then if we look at our, let me give us a little more space here. If we look right here, we can see that the color is black. So that is correct. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that up and close this. And here is our page layout with our header, our horizontal main navigation here. And then we have a side navigation. And then we have our main content that we could put in here. And we can put a lot more content in there, guys. Like if you want to add more content just inside this section, you could do whatever you want. Some more content. And then you can add another paragraph if you want and say even more content. Whatever you want to do here. Refresh. So we can see we have our header and our paragraphs. So I think this looks pretty nice. The other thing that I think we could do really quick to just recap something is let's go ahead and change our font. And so let's go to Google Font now. So just type in Google Fonts. Oops. Mainly I'm just showing you this because this is probably going to come up all the time. And let's see, they have Roboto. So Roboto looks like this. And then they even have some popular pairings that people use together. So they have Roboto and Open Sans. So let's go ahead and add Open Sans. And what I want to do is let's close that. And let's add the Roboto. I keep saying Roboto. I'm not really sure how to say that. So Roboto. And where do I add this? Let's see. Regular and Open Sans. Well, you know what? I think they keep moving stuff around. I'm trying to find the little pop-up that gives us the there it is, view your selected family. Sorry about that. So this gives us a link that we can use, and it's going to load in Open Sans. And how come I didn't select the... I also want to... Oh. Let's do regular. Okay. There we go. So now we'll have the Open Sans and Roboto. So let's go ahead and copy that link there. And we need to put that in our HTML. So up here above our CSS page, it has to be above it because it needs to load in those fonts before it attempts to use it in the style sheet. So there we go, there's that. And then in our style sheet, you can see that they show the font family here. So let's go ahead and grab those. And then let's go back to our menu, and in our body, let's just paste those. And I think I want the body to be open sans, but let's do our H1s, H2s, H3s, H4s, H5s, now these, we didn't use all these, but then let's also do our A's, and let's just target all these and do the font family of Roboto. And refresh here. And now you can see that we're using, for our headers, if I right click on here, we should be using Roboto, and we are. And then our content though, our main content for this here, this should be using Open Sans, and it is. And also our footer text should be Open Sans. So all of our main content is going to be Open Sans. However, our links for our menus or whatever and our headers are all going to be Roboto. So that's the way we can change up the fonts a little bit, and that was just a little bit of added freshness. But anyways, guys, if you guys want to know more about CSS, obviously you can check out some of the resources I've already showed you. There is the Mozilla CSS documentation, so you can check that out on developer.mozilla. So that's the MDN web docs. You're gonna, anything you search for in here, so let's just do H1. It's gonna give you the any sort of information that you would like to know about that. So here you go, you can look at the CSS, you can read all about it. And then also, if you want, you can also check out w3schools.com. And if you click on tutorials and go to Learn CSS, they have some great CSS tutorials on here. So you can go through here and look through if you want to look at tables. And they even have some try it yourself stuff and give you different examples on styling all this stuff up. So just want to give you a few resources that you can use to look up as you're trying to do your own styles, and as you try to use more and more things on your website. Now we're going to do in future chapters, we're going to be using a lot of CSS and HTML, so I wouldn't get too carried away with trying to spend a bunch of time learning all of that stuff, because again, we're just going to do so much repetition that this will start to stick. I know I probably went a little quick today. You can go back, slow it down, watch it, rewind it, pause it, whatever, read through the code. I do encourage you to type along with me and make your own page and try to make your own layouts. Just imagine them and try to make them. Don't get too worried about trying to do real crazy stuff. But again, we're just in the beginning of this journey, and if you can get to the point where we're at now, where you understand HTML and its structure, and you understand a lot of the basics of CSS and their structure, then I'd say you're well on your way and you're in good shape. Don't worry too much at this point if you can't just sit down and write out a page from memory or anything like that and make it look exactly how you want. But what you should be able to probably do is take what we've done and modify it a little bit, and then try to make a simple elements on the page and style them up a little bit, and also just practice looking stuff up in documentation and seeing if you can figure out some solutions to the questions that you may be having as you're styling out your own elements. But again, I'm not too stressed at this point if you don't feel too comfortable with CSS yet. I just wanted to give you guys a crash course in HTML and CSS before we dive in. And in the next chapter, we're actually going to start doing some logic with some programming languages. So this was all just kind of an introduction to HTML and CSS. So I think we've done that plenty. I think we've gone through a lot for just a kind of a 101 crash course. So I'm proud of you guys. I hope you guys are having fun. Don't give up, keep practicing, and let's start writing some logic in our first programming language in the next chapter. I'll see you there.